Oh, this is gonna be crazy.
Okay, destroy the building.
Alright, so hello everyone and welcome to another edition of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000 and today I'm going to talk about the next DLC out of Bethesda, Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, which is a prequel game to last year, 2014's Wolfenstein: The New Order. So I'm just going to hop right in because really this is a pretty short game as well as a short review. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood is designed to be a prequel and a lead-in to Wolfenstein: The New Order. So you play as B.J. Blazkowicz on his mission to retrieve a folder from a Nazi general who has the information on the location of Death's Head, who is essentially the antagonist of the New Order. And doing so involves you to break into Castle Wolfenstein in order to retrieve it in the surrounding areas. And in general, the story is pretty simplistic. You know, it's go in there, get what you need, and get out. There's a few twists here and there. There's a pretty big twist around just after the halfway point through the DLC. But most of all, the game is pretty similar to the New Order. In fact, it basically plays exactly the same with almost no differences, I want to say. A few here and there, maybe, to keep it, to modernize, a few small improvements. But generally, if you play one, you've played the other for the most part. Now, unlike the New Order, the weapons are more 1940s-esque, obviously, because it doesn't take place in the 1960s. So the weapons aren't as futuristic or as different. However, the weapons are still pretty good to play as. It's more classical. It's kind of more what you would come to expect from a normal default FPS. Nothing crazy like bouncing shotgun shells off of walls or anything like that, or laser rifles or anything. The gameplay is pretty solid. I'll say that right now. The gameplay of the New Order, of the Old Blood, is pretty simplistic, but at the same time fun, and probably the most attractive part of the entire DLC. There's certain segments that are just straight up run and gun, kill everything. You'll recognize some enemies from the New Order. There's new enemies, of course, to mix things up. There's also stealth segments which return. There's a good amount of stealth segments, and again, you have the freedom to play it however you want. You can go in guns blazing, you can go in stealthily, you can do a mix of both if you feel like it. And that's really, again, one of the major aspects that I really, really liked about the New Order. Continues to reappear in the Old Blood. Now it's first-person shooter. You can dual-wield weapons. Weapons have alternate fire. They have different modes, so the pistol can be suppressed. The assault rifle has burst fire, etc., etc. And it's really, really fun and interesting, to use all these different weapons depending on the situation and adapt to things. And it leads to some really fast-paced gameplay. I really like that a lot. Ultimately, the biggest thing I have to say about this gameplay that I don't like is maybe the weapon wheel is a little bit hard to select what you want on the fly, like in the middle of combat, at least on consoles. And the only other thing that I'll really say is that the game is pretty short. In fact, some levels are probably only 20 minutes long. Not even, really. I'd say that one level could be beaten in as little as 5 if you know what you're doing. And you just, kind of rush through it. Another thing that I do like in this game is that they do take a good amount of time to put in a lot of old school Wolfenstein levels. Wolfenstein levels that would have been seen in Wolfenstein 3D. Very simplistic old mechanisms and level design in there. So that's fun if you like old school FPS or you want a nice nostalgic trip. There's also a lot of Easter eggs in this game, a lot of references and whatnot. So a good portion of this DLC is really to cater to fans, is really to, give the fans a pat on the back and say thank you for playing. And it's really nice that each level has something to it and is really, really fun and, at least different. Now, I do like the challenge mode. The challenge mode of this DLC basically involves you fighting against waves of enemies, and you get various rewards and gold medals if you succeed. I also like that the game is, again, I said very fast-paced, but also has a nice diverse amount of enemies, diverse amount of gameplay. And even though I will say that the final boss is a little bit lacking and a little bit kind of a letdown compared to, say, New Order's final boss, ultimately the whole journey is still just basically what you would expect. If I were to say that the New Order was a 100%, I would say that Wolfenstein, the Old Blood, is probably more like a 40%, not in terms of quality, but just saying, in terms of what's in the game. So it's a good portion of it, and the best part about it has to most certainly be the price point of only $20. I'll really say that they could have easily, tried to squeeze out 30, 40, but the $20 price point really, really helps out. I think it's really worth it, especially if you really like the New Order. This is most certainly something really cool that you can try out for, a good portion. Still the same good old stuff. Admittedly, while the story is a little weak and some parts of the gameplay are pretty weak or annoying, it still was very good. The gameplay, the core of it is still very well done. Certainly, there could be some parts of the game that could have been done a little bit better, such as, again, the weapon selection, maybe a little bit more diversity in terms of the challenge maps. I don't really understand the story of it, where the way that they had that big plot twist just kind of to throw it in there was kind of out of nowhere and really didn't fit too well. I know Wolfenstein doesn't exactly have the most realistic of plots, but at the same time it felt a little bit out of place. And again, one of the biggest things that I did not like about the New Order was that you had to manually pick up weapons, ammo, and armor. And I feel that at this point, that's something that can very easily be made like automatically picking up weapons and ammo and whatnot. It does not have to, you do not have to push a button. I feel that that's a very outdated mechanism in a bad way. You should not have to push a button every single time you want to pick up ammo, every single time you want to pick up armor, health. Well, maybe health I can understand, if you want to overcharge, you want specific, but ammo, I'm a little bit annoyed and peeved that you have to do that. Games forever have been basically making that auto. I don't understand why they stick with the fact that you can leave it as something manual. Like, I can get maybe armor, I could definitely get health. Not every, if you want to wait and see things out, I could totally get that. Armor maybe. But when it comes to weapon ammo, I think that is very, very outdone. And that is, again, it was a point of contention for me in the New Order. Here, it's still basically the same. And it's good. It has some flaws, again. But, I would say that Wolfenstein, the Old Blood, is a very well worth it if you're a fan of Wolfenstein. And, so ultimately, what would I give Wolfenstein the New Order? I keep saying the New Order again. What would I give Wolfenstein the Old Blood? For more classical style Wolfenstein, I would definitely give it a good rating. Again, the same flaws that are present in the New Order kind of plague the Old Blood, in addition to a couple new things, such as a very supercilious end to the story, very out of place, out of nowhere kind of ending. Some gameplay mechanics that are a little annoying. Still basically the same kind of problems. I would give it still a pretty good rating because ultimately what it boils down to is a good couple of hours of fast-paced, action-based gameplay in the first person. So I'd give it more like an 85 out of 100. Certainly flaws there, but certainly not anything too major that I would say it's off-putting. It's well done where it balances out and takes its time to really immerse you in choice, whether you want to go in guns blazing or you want to go in stealthily. Good amount of fan service, I'd say. Good amount of diversity. Good amount of replayability as well. Chapters may be a little short. Weapon selection might be a little Auto pickup is still just as annoying. And the story is a little supercilious, and all those do kind of add up, but not anything too significantly. So that's going to be it for this episode of The Verdict. I know it's a very short one, but certainly a game worth checking out if you're looking for a faster paced kind of deal. Certainly just something different.